It is I, Randy, with my cousin. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Edwin,
Yeah, and
cousin of
today,
Randy. Happy to
yes,
be here. Happy to be
yes,
part of this experiment that we're both trying out for the very first time here.
yes, for sure. And so today we're just kind of gonna record, like Edwin said before, the recording a prototype podcast. There's gonna be really there's gonna be no rhythm or rhyme to it. We're kind of just gonna go with the flow, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is something me and Edwin have been talking about for a while now. Actually, it's been quite
Yeah,
a
definitely.
yeah, it's been quite something in the back of our minds. But we're here um, with a very probably cliche topic for this time of the year, but a topic that gets people's mouths moving nonetheless. So today, we're gonna be talking about our game of the year, and with that, we're basically gonna go over our top five, and I think we should go basically five, five, four, four, and then slowly build our way up to the top. And then after we the thing with me and Edmund, we play lots of games throughout the year, and today I think we realize more than ever that we play a lot of old games that don't qualify it for the top games of 2024. So we'll be talking about that a little bit after too. But yeah, so we can jump right into it. Do you want to go first? Do you want to say your number five?
I can definitely go first. Yeah, no problem. So, as you said, we'll go five, four, three, two, one. My number five game of the year, and this is a very recent game, and might be a little bit of recency bias here in terms of what I'm about to describe, but this is a combo deal. So both the Black Ops 2 campaign and the Black Ops 2 multiplayer, I'm kind of cheating a little bit, kind of giving a little two for one. But just the Black Ops 2, Black Ops 6. I'm over here freaking 12 years in the past or something. But Black Ops 6 is really good. So at heart, really a little bit about myself and the types of games that I really enjoy and I kind of really get into. I love shooters. Obviously, Call of Duty is a game that is an annual franchise that comes out every single year. Some people love it. Some people think it's whatever. For me, I feel like I've been out of the Call of Duty meta for a few years. I jumped back in last year with Modern Warfare. I think Modern Warfare 3 was the last one. I played that on and off for most of the year, I would say, tapered off towards the end of the year. But Black Ops 2 releasing not even a month ago. It's not even a month old at this point, but I've definitely sunk in a lot of hours playing. The multiplayer is a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the Omni movement, which is something that's controversial to some. Some people don't like the fact that you can do 540 spins in the air if you're jumping out a window and do these crazy glitch looking moves, and the multiplayer gets all nuts. But um, multiplayer, people know what they're getting into with multiplayer. It's a good variety. I think that they've refined that system pretty well, and I think that it's pretty solid. But one part of it, the game that really stuck out to me is the campaign. Now, I love stealth games, and this campaign has a lot of stealth in it, and I think that that's so awesome. There's so many cool ways to approach missions. You can do a lot of missions where you're undercover and you're disguised as an enemy, and you can do some where you try to not even kill any enemies, and you can play it like this really either guns blazing or really covert style. And I think that that really kind of lends itself to being that Black Ops style kind of game, which is really cool. Most Call of Duty campaigns, and I've played a lot of them, it is very much you're just fighting waves of enemies, going after waves of enemies, and depending on the setting of the mission, it could take have a theme or two. Some of it might be a little bit more you're running through a basement, or you're coming up into a large battlefield, but a lot of gunplay for the most part. But Black Ops, it has a little more nuance to it, and the cool part of it too is you're able to build out your character as you progress through the missions. You can find money in the levels, and then you have like a central hub that you're able to buy upgrades that are permanent to your character. So, for example, if I like to play with a particular, like say I like to play with a particular style where I want to have more tactical grenades, I can make it so that I can carry more tactical grenades. Or if I want to go just guns blazing a lot, I can make it so that I find more ammo permanently. You can have permanent health upgrades to your character. You can make it so that you can carry more armor plates. And there's a lot of variety with that. So I think that that's really cool. The Black Ops story specifically is really, really cool. It's kind of convoluted, and it gets absolutely insane from time to time, which I think is, it's hard to follow, especially since there's so much actual years that have passed between some of the entries, and I feel like I've kind of got lost in the story, but that doesn't take away from the actual story of this game being, in and of itself a good and a fun story to kind of follow. It actually goes absolutely bonkers off the wall with some of the story content, and I won't get into spoilers really, but you know, let's just say that they wove the zombies into the actual main story somehow. But it's actually really creatively done, and it's actually pretty cool. So, just Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 6. I keep saying Black Ops 2. I don't know why I'm saying that.
It's because I talked about it Wii U yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that might have been why. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wii U came out, I think, 13 years ago
Yeah.
or 12 years ago, as of yesterday, which is crazy. I'm getting the Facebook post, which is, 12 years ago today, and it's a picture of my Wii U with Zombie U and all kinds of stuff that I never played. But yeah, shout out to Black Ops 6. Right now everybody's kind of getting hyped about playing the ranked and in the multiplayer, and they're really good about kind of continually releasing content to keep people engaged. But I'm a assault rifle guy, submachine gun kind of run and gun style player, and that's the way I love to play multiplayer. And when I have those games where I'm just shredding everybody up, I have a good time. I like to click faces, as they say, and try to get those dubs. But that's really all I gotta say. I mean, I haven't played Black Ops 2 for a long time, but I mean, I beat the campaign on Veteran, and I've played a lot of the multiplayer, and I'm having a really good time with it. And I'm gonna continue to play it, and we'll see how long it lasts, and see if it has that sticking power into 2025.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with a lot of things you just said. Black Ops 6 actually was kind of on my mind on my top 5 a few weeks ago. It's kind of fallen down on my list because I just haven't gone back to it, but the multiplayer that I played was really fun. The little of the campaign I played was a blast. I do think it's easily to say, and I think most people would agree, it's the best Call of Duty in a long time, I would argue. Not that I hated the last few years. I've always been like, Call of Duty is you're supposed to have fun, and I usually do have fun, and I play my month or two with my friends, and then I move on, and I feel like that's the magic of Call of Duty. When people start, pulling it apart and getting the nitty gritty, like, well, you move 0.006 seconds slower. I'm like, I won't notice that. I'm gonna shoot things and have fun. But there's something about this year's that feels a little bit more special, a little bit more care that was put into it. And I haven't played the zombies, but I have watched my friends play zombies, and the zombies looks like a step up from like the last few years. It just feels like everything kind of just went a step up. So I feel like Call of Duty in the top 5 isn't going to be as controversial as one would think, at least this year.
Yeah, I will say real quick, and that you mentioned the zombies. I've literally played one game of zombies, and it was like a 2-hour game. And this, zombies has never really been my thing. I know people love the zombies, and I'm not really somebody who's outside of the very first one, which is in World at War, like that when everybody's in that same little cabin, and that's the original, incarnation. I remember playing a lot of that, but all of the zombie entries in the past Call of Duty have really not touched too much. But that one game that I played, it's evolved a lot. I mean, like I said, I'm not too familiar with how it's changed over the years, but damn, that game is completely different from what I remember. There's freaking vending machines as the zombies end up having like a zillion HP, and it gets crazy.
Yeah,
so,
the zombies straight up have
definitely
health bars now.
Yeah, it's insane. Crazy. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like the weapons are absolutely crazy too, but I think that's part of the fun. I think that just the fact that it's so off the wall bonkers. But to your point about the Call of Duty being one of the better Call of Duties in the last few years, I would agree. I think that it's really the game's already been so refined over the years, and it seems like anytime there's a leap forward in I guess the imagination or in the in the gameplay where they're refining things further and it feels new. I don't know. I wouldn't say this game feels new, but it definitely feels refined, and I think that that's very solid for a first-person shooter, especially one of Call of Duty caliber.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I think it's a good pick for sure. All right, my number 5. Speaking of controversy, a game that some people might agree with. A lot of people did get into this game, but some people might roll their eyes, really. My number 5 is actually TCG Simulator. TCG Card Shop Simulator. Every year I have probably one game on my list that, people think like, why? But there's also one game every year that I just sink in so many hours into it for no reason. And TCG Simulator is just one of those games. I love simulators to begin with. I love roller coaster simulators. I love theme park simulators. I love basically any simulator. I literally platinum Supermarket Simulator earlier this year. Like these simulators, there's just something about them that they're relaxing to me. So when I heard TCG Simulator was being made, I actually really didn't care much. I'm not a card guy, although I feel like that's changed the last like few months.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, there's Pokemon cards literally ready to be unboxed behind me. But so when I heard that it was coming, like okay, whatever. And then people really started talking highly about it, so I checked it out. And even then, I'm not gonna lie, and you could put an asterisk next to this top 5 because even when I first downloaded it, I wasn't like totally sold on it because I wasn't invested in the cards themselves. They're just like wannabe Pokemon. And I think my biggest problem with games like that is like it's very hard for me to invest in a game that's not Pokemon, but it's trying to be Pokemon, but it's also trying not to be Pokemon in a way. Like they're in this weird middle ground, and ever since I was a kid, people call them Fakemon, basically. And ever since I was a kid, like it's just very hard for me to invest in stuff like that when I'm so invested in Pokemon. Someone out there made a nice skin mod over the game and just pop Pokemon in it, and it just made me understand it a lot better. It made me enjoy it a lot better. It made me happy that people were buying Pikachu plushes rather than Wazarka, the dragon, whatever. Like, I don't know who that is because he's fake. So once that Pokemon mod put on, and again, you can put it an asterisk, like, well, you only enjoyed it because of Pokemon. Like, yeah, but it's just a skin mod. It didn't change the gameplay. It didn't change how the game ran. It didn't give me an upper hand of like, playing the game itself. But I just enjoyed it. I think I have in like 3 to 4 weeks, because I only played it for like 3 to 4 weeks. I had logged in like 75 hours into that game. The game does get repetitive towards like once you really start ranking up, and that's just kind of how simulators are. Just you're simulating essentially a real life hobby or job or something. So you're gonna get to a point where they do get a little repetitive. But that being said, I did enjoy what I played. I enjoyed the constant updates the developer was doing, and yeah, and this is a conversation online. Just like again, I know it's a simulator, but like the strats of how do you make money? Like, oh, well, I did this, and that, and a few of my friends got into it. And we're kind of just comparing stats on how to do things. So,
oh yeah, there's whole Reddit threads on how to maximize money. Like It's funny. Yeah, I was talking to some of my other friends, and they were into kind of the strategy of just how to maximize the money. And for some people, that's like that's the goal. But yeah, a little thing about Randy, if you're able to kind of reskin or tie Pokemon into it somehow, you've automatically got his attention, and he'll at least check your game out. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, no, for sure. And
baited.
Yeah, and TCG did exactly that. And to TCG's credit, they probably didn't do that on purpose, but some random fan out there who is like me, who just wants Pokemon and everything, did it for me. And yeah, no, it was a fun game.
Yeah, I'll say that I haven't played the game myself, but I've watched you, Randy, and one of my other friends also play it in the background, and it is funny to watch, and it is cool to see. I think there's definitely some dopamine rush when you're cracking packs and you see the value of some of these cards going up. I'm I have an addictive personality when it comes to like that gotcha style game, and sometimes I'm getting baited into those style of games, and you just love to just open packs and just open stuff and just to see what you can pull. Sometimes that luck factor is also a lot of fun. I like in the stores, like the stinky people that can come into the store and you gotta like spray them down. I think that's hilarious. But yeah, no, shout out to that game. That game did make a lot of waves. I feel like a lot of people picked that up, and it was it's something that's fun to both watch, and I guess for the people who are playing the game, there's probably a level of enjoyment there. So shout out TCG Card Simulator.
Totally unrelated, but it really is that weird that game kind of popped off the way it did. Literally weeks before the Pokemon TCG game came out on the phones. Like it feels like that dopamine you're talking about, I really think led into everybody getting into the app on the phone. Not everybody, but like a lot of like I think me and my friend Nick, I think we literally like we had so much fun doing that in like a simulator. Now that we're kind of doing it more digitally, like that dopamine, we're like, oh yeah, I remember we used to do this, and so it's weird. Obviously, they're unrelated, and that was not planned on anyone's accord. but it is weird that that timing kind of
Yeah, just that release
lined up.
timing where
Yeah.
fed
And
into
since
the.
then, like I've been buying Pokemon cards in real life again. Like it just all that kind of adds up. So that's why I said like a few months ago I wasn't really the card guy, but the last few months I feel like I've slowly kind of dived in back into that rabbit hole, which some would say that's bad, but we'll figure that out later.
Oh,
Yeah.
shout out. All right,
Yes.
cool.
Alright, yep. So yeah, we can go with our number 4 now. So go ahead, take it away, Edwin.
All right, number 4 on the list. And this is a game of the year from the Game Awards contender here. It's going to go to Black Myth Wukong. All right, now this game I still have not beat. I'm pretty far into it. It's actually insane. My biggest complaint about the game, and there's not many, but I just think that the main character looks kind of goofy. Like I don't know, like something about playing that monkey character is just kind of strange. Like I guess I prefer to play as human characters, but whatever. When the game's good, you can overlook all that stuff, and Black Myth Wukong has got it going on, brother. So the combat in that game, obviously, a lot of people kind of tie it to like a Soulsborne style type of game where you're defeating foes and you're collecting essence and you're leveling up your character, you're increasing stats, you're doing that whole bit. So for you guys, if anybody's played, an Elden Ring, a Dark Souls, a Sekiro, a lot of these games that have that template, I think Wukong has that what you're looking for. The graphics are absolutely stunning. The game looks incredible. It's one of the best looking games I've seen just ever. I think the settings are awesome. There's different little worlds and lands, and it ties into some mythology and stuff, which is really cool if you're into that. The combat is very solid. You're playing as the base form is you're playing as this this humanoid kind of monkey that has a staff, and the staff can be manipulated in multiple ways. You can unlock abilities to make the staff grow to be like 12 feet. You can climb up it. You can slam enemies. Another awesome thing, which I feel like maybe like the Souls games might be able to snipe snipe from this game, that I think is an awesome ability, is the main character can shapeshift into other bosses that you've defeated. So like once you defeat certain enemies, you're able to take on their form and become them. And you can use like a limited skill set of their abilities until your meter runs out. I think that's super cool, especially since I had a complaint about it, like the way the main character looked. I was like, all right, I could just be something else for a little bit, and that's a cool thing. Another thing I really, really like about this game is the way that the upgrade system works. You can respec your character literally for free anytime you want. You just go over to one of the little shrines and you can just completely change your build. So if you wanted to experiment with a build, like say I wanted to have a build that focuses on a particular fighting style, you can do that. If you wanted to then, you change your mind, I want to do something different, or, the way that I play games sometimes is, I'll look at what people find, feel the strongest build is, and I'll try to like mimic that because I want to just be the most OP at all times. But sometimes you find that that's not the most fun play style. So, sometimes the character as you just play and you organically go through the game, you just find moves that you feel are to your play style, and that's kind of what you start investing points into. But I like that you're able to try new builds, especially as you level up and you get access to more things. You can completely respec your character. Most times there's a cost to that. Most times it's like, oh, you gotta go back and you gotta pay this amount of souls, or you gotta do this in order to maybe be able to change your build, and then you spend resources that you got to go and fucking grind later. It's like, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to just be able to respec whenever I want. That's a huge cool thing about that game. But it's a game that I still plan on finishing. Like I said, the game is huge. I think that it's basically continuous boss fights. Like I think the time between boss fights is really kind of small. Like there's enemies in between zones, but there's just an infinitely crazy amount of boss fights. Like I don't even know how many bosses at this point I've defeated. And sometimes you feel like you're going into a new area, and it's like you beat this boss and it's not even the real boss. It's like that's like a sub boss, and it's like, whoa, that's what the heck is going on. This you fight these giant creatures, and it makes it you have such a feeling of accomplishment when you defeat them, and then only to find out that there's either a phase 2 that you weren't expecting, or an even more deadly boss just a few feet further. And for some people that's stressful, and that's builds anxiety, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh my god, I just want to get to the next part. I don't want to have to keep grinding through this. But for people who love that style of gameplay and just thrive in that combat area, that's really this game's really a sweet spot. So I would give a big shout out to Black Myth Wukong in that regard, and I look forward to continuing it. It's not something that I've completed, but it's already cemented a place in its position in my top 5 games for 2024.
And I would love to add to that, but I have not played this game, nor do I really know anything about this game. I know a lot of people talk about it. I hear people love it, but it's a game I don't think I've even seen a screenshot of this game, if I'm being honest.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And for someone, I know you've played Sekiro and you really enjoyed that game. So,
Mhm.
and that game, I would consider that game
asked.
way harder. Like Sekiro is a hard game. If you can beat that game, dude, you'll smash Wukong easy. Like that's the thing. Like I would say Black Myth Wukong is not as difficult, which I think is nice, especially since some of these games are so unforgiving. But if that's a barrier for anyone out there that might be hesitant to try the game, is like, oh, those types of games are too hard. This game is a little bit more lenient, I would feel, in in how you're able to parry and dodge. I love having both of those options. You can do perfect dodges, and I think that's something that you learn to master early on, and you're pretty set. So, shout out Black Myth Wukong. All right, Randy, what do you got? Number 4.
My number 4 is Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. If you told me a Zelda game would not be at least in my top 3, I would think you're crazy. But Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, although I do love the game, obviously it's in my top 5. It's definitely on the lower end for Zelda games to me. That being said, for what the game does, it does really, for me, get me out of my comfort zone. First off, I've never been a fan of 2D Zelda in general. As a big Zelda fan, I have never beat Link to the Past. I have started that game so many times, and I can never beat it. And there's something about 2D games. When I became a Zelda fan, I just kind of entered in the 3D era, where 3D games were the only ones being made. So I kind of just learned to love those. But 3D games, I feel like also have a faster pace to them. They have more story to them, which I just enjoy in a Zelda game and a game in general. So, Echoes of Wisdom had a few things kind of like, oh, it's slower. Oh, there's no sword fights. Oh, it's 2D. It's in basically the same role as Link to the Past. Not that that's a downer, but it's more like, I don't like Link to the Past.
That's a win for me.
Yeah, and it's a win for a lot of people. I know a lot of people are very excited to see that, oh my god, we're going back. That being said, I beat it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the puzzles. I enjoyed the way you had to kind of progress and kind of maneuver around with these echo abilities you collect from enemies. And I will say something about the game. The game, I think, starts off really slow in the sense, obviously you have low echo ability. Obviously you have you're very limited to like what enemies you can use. But by the end of the game, you have almost like infinite power. Just like you're just ramming through things. You're kind of just summoning like straight up Lionels, and like you feel powerful. And I think the game does a really good job of making you feel powerful. And that whole end segment felt very epic and rewarding. I think the game did a very good job at kind of proving to itself to like being different, but also being very familiar. That being said, too, I love Breath of the Wild and I love Tears of the Kingdom so dearly. And this comment's more towards Breath of the Wild. I do not think Breath of the Wild is a great Zelda game. I think it's a fantastic game, but something about it kind of lost the Zelda magic for me that I think Tears of the Kingdom desperately tried to kind of, reel it back
Restore,
in. Yeah. And that goes to the first village you find in Echoes of Wisdom, the music. The music in this Echoes of Wisdom is so good. And going to a town with, like, classic Zelda music, I'm like, oh, yeah, I really missed this. Seeing all these goofy characters in the world, oh, yeah, I really missed this. Seeing these familiar Zelda enemies, oh, yeah, I really missed this. Heck, I posted...
And in that, like, 2.5D style of art, too. Like, I think that's so cool.
And that too, like, it's... And they chose a good art style, kind of recycling the Link's Awakening remake on Switch. I think that art style was perfect. I'm glad they got to reuse it. And and just seeing a bunch of familiar faces. I literally posted a video on my TikTok today about Zelda, and the first comment on that, like, shout out to the Deku Scrub. I'm like, yes, shout out to the Deku Scrub. Like, thank you for bringing him back. I don't know why he hasn't been in the game since Majora's Mask.
Salute.
Yes. So seeing that Nintendo still has that classic Zelda on their mind really brings me like, okay, we're good. Like, they didn't lose like all of it, because I really feared with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they got very like, oh, this is what the Western audience wants. Like, we can't be goofy. We can't, like, they want the open world, epic adventure, 200-hour game. So seeing a smaller scale Zelda game like this being received very well and very, like, yeah, it's a cozy game. And, I know so many people who aren't Zelda fans who picked up this game and they gave it a try and they love it. But I don't know if I can recommend other Zelda games because it's so different. So it's this weird, like, amalgamy of like, ugh. But at the end of the day, I did enjoy my time with it, and I'm happy we finally got to play as Zelda. I know that's been a fan request for years, and they did it, and yeah, this a good game overall.
Shout out. Well, that's actually perfect timing because that's gonna lead me to my number 3. My number 3 game was also Legend of Zelda, or that was your number 4, but that's my number 3 game of 2024, Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. I think you shared on touched on a lot of the main points that I find also strong. I love the music in the game. I love like the puzzles and the way that they kind of brought the Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom style puzzle, open-ended puzzle solving. You have a lot of tools with Zelda. The whole point of the game is you defeat enemies and you retain their echoes, which essentially lets you summon any of the enemies you defeat. Literally any of the enemies. Like anything that you fight in that game, you eventually get an echo of, which allows you to bring a copy of that enemy and use their ability to your advantage, whether it be a little flame to light a candle or to light a torch, or she has a rod that lets her grab stuff from a distance and manipulate and move it around the map and do all this crazy stuff. But yeah, I loved that about Tears of the Kingdom, which you're able to kind of just break the game almost and kind of just find your own solutions to puzzles, or you can go about it a zillion different ways. And I'm over here with the little bed and summoning a bed and make a little staircase of beds to continue crossing chasms and getting from side to side. One of the things that kind of surprised me about this game is that I kind of initially, when it was announced, which wasn't too far from when it was released, I kind of just didn't really follow or track it at all, so I didn't really know what I was going to be in for, and I didn't really even anticipate buying it day one, but I ended up doing so, and I'm super happy that I did. I think it's one of the best games, for sure, one of the best games of the year. Playing as Zelda was something that I wasn't super thrilled about. For me, I love games where the main character is cool, and here I am, 3 games into my top 5, and initially thinking Wukong isn't a cool character. Again with Zelda, Zelda's not a cool character. I love Link. I think Link is super cool. So playing as Zelda was like, all right, well, whatever. It's still a Zelda game. Let's see what Nintendo cooked up, and those devs over there at Nintendo, when it comes to the Zelda IP, they do an incredible job at just refining a product to be special. And I continually just tip my hat to them. I think that they do just such an incredible job. Zelda does feel very, very overpowered. There's kind of like this inverse combat style with the game. Link is very heavy on swinging a sword, blocking with a shield, jumping, throwing bombs, using arrows. Where Zelda's the exact opposite. She has no attacks, but she has the ability to summon monsters that can attack for her. So as you defeat them by, initially when you have no abilities, you're picking up pots and throwing them at the enemies and knocking them out, and then grabbing the echo. Now I can summon a bat, and I can use that bat to kill the knight that has, that's a little bit more powerful. Then once you have the Knight Echo, you can start summoning the Knight, and he'll help you beat stronger enemies. And eventually, you just kind of work your way to having these access to an insane amount of enemies. Another criticism I do have of the game is kind of the UI is a little bit clunky. With you can collect, I don't know how many echoes are in the game, but it's probably like close to 70 echoes. It feels like, and they don't have any way to really sort them. When you want to find an echo, you literally hit the D-pad and you hold left on the D-pad or something like that, and it has a list, and you just got to scroll and find the ones that find the one that you want. And it does kind of mark it by your most used. So if you use a particular echo a good amount, it'll you can sort it to move that to the top. But that's really the the most of it. I wish I was able to just set favorites or something,
Yeah.
something a little bit more there. I think that would have been perfect and not too much of a an ask. But overall, I mean, with how good the game is, you know, I'm not gonna knock that or hold that too much against them. The game's awesome, and yeah, that's my number three game of the year: Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Shout out Nintendo; they know what they're doing over there. So tip of the hat once again.
Yeah, and just to add again, even though I just talked about it, just to add on to that, like that issue with the scroll. That's two games in a row, Nintendo, that you had that issue because Tears of the Kingdom. But I really felt like that was an issue more in this game because there were this game I think tests your creativity a little bit more than Tears of the Kingdom, which is crazy. But sometimes the way I told my friend is like when you have an enemy pop up, it's like putting two bugs in a bottle and then seeing what happens. You don't know what's gonna happen. And with that, with Echoes of Wisdom, the game lets you do that. But when you have to scroll through 60 things, sometimes you kind of like, well, I'm just gonna use the Lionel that's in my most used up front because it's gonna do the job anyways.
Gonna get the job done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think with that,
There's some that I didn't use at all.
Yeah, and some of them are really interesting. Some of the things I see like on the internet, like, oh, I didn't even think about using this one thing I got in the corner of this house that one time that I never touched. Like, oh, you can use it like this, So it's really interesting. I really hope they kind of fix that in the next. If they're gonna keep doing this long collectathon of like collecting items or abilities, I really hope. I mean, this game honestly uses a lot of UI from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, even down to like the quest log. It's very copy and paste. But I do hope they fix that. Also, last shout out to Dungeons. It was so good being in actual dungeons again. It feels like it's been over a decade. I don't count the ones in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Those feel like more like challenges.
Yeah.
But being in an actual dungeon, I think the first dungeon straight up called like a temple. So like just being in that type of thing again was really nice. So yeah. All right, my number 3. Now, this one I really thought about putting it on there, but I think there's enough new that it makes sense. My number 3 is actually Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. Now, at its core, Sonic, it is a remake of Sonic Generations back on the 360 and PS3. But there is a whole add-on, Shadow Generations, that I think a lot of people didn't expect it to be as big as it was. It's basically double of the story of Sonic Generations. It's its own campaign. Honestly, when I first saw Shadow Generations, I'm like, oh, it's probably like 2 or 3 levels you play as Shadow. It's gonna be cool. But no, there's a whole backstory, and it really feels like the sequel to Sonic Adventure 2. It continues kind of like giving the backstory. I think it gives the backstory better than Sonic Adventure 2. And this Shadow in general is a cool character. I really wish his voice sounded cooler. I hate his voice so much. You'd think it would be this cool, deep voice, but it just isn't. Anyways, that's a side tangent. But Sonic Generations in general, though, is just it's peak Sonic. It's the best Sonic's been, and it's really frustrating to me that Sonic Generations got it down in 2013, and then they fumbled, and they basically came back to this, and again, people love it. So I really just hope Sega sees, like, oh, this is what people want. The levels in 2D or 3D I just think are fun. The music is fantastic. In Sonic Generations, I really like that it's more of like a best of Sonic. It basically, for those who don't know, basically it gets the best level in each Sonic game up until 2013 and remasters it in 3D or 2D. So when it gets Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, you obviously have a remastered 2D level from the Sega Genesis game. But then they make a 3D version of that, and then vice versa. You get a level from like Sonic Unleashed, which was 3D, but then they make a 2D version of it. So you really get this new and old on every level. Even though every level is old, you always get this new aspect to it, which is amazing. But for those people who didn't like that back in the day, like, oh, I already seen all these levels, that's where Shadow Generations kind of fills that void, being all unique levels, mostly unique levels, no spoilers, and those just play amazingly, and those are all 3D. Because I think these games definitely shine more in the 3D aspect. I think if you're gonna do a 2D style game, you stick to like pixelated 3D or pixelated 2D, like Sonic Mania. And I think they knew that. So when they go into 3D, and the set pieces in this game are just stupid. Like they're just so insane. And there's explosions everywhere, and there's a level where Shadow just straight up kicks a missile, and then the missile explodes. Like it's so over the top, but it's amazing. I love Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations was my favorite Sonic game, but added to this new Shadow Generations and this complete package and a bunch of quality of life and it being in 4K at 60 FPS. Like it's a beautiful game. Like everything, all the textures are up-res and like everything just it's just a perfect package. I really like this game. And shout out to being $50 because that's always a plus. But yeah, I love Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. It seems like the internet is finally on Sonic's good side again. For years, our Sonic Hedgehog friend has been dragged through the mud. But it's good to see him back on track. The one thing I will complain about is the level select in Sonic Generations is basically a 2D, like you just choose your level on a 2D plane. And with Shadow, like I said, there's no 2D stuff in the Shadow game. So it's like a 3D open world, similar to Sonic Frontiers, which I did not like. But the problem, at least with Sonic Frontiers, you're like in an open like field, so you can see like mountains and stuff. In Shadow Generations, you're in a white void. So it just feels very disjointing, and it feels like things are complicated just for the sake of being complicated, which I don't enjoy. It just, getting to level in Shadow Generations, I felt kind of annoying. And I can probably accept it at that, but because there's collectibles in the level selects, it makes it even more annoying to like, oh, okay, well, what part of the white void am I missing a red ring in, or what part of the void am I missing? Like, it's really weird. I hope they don't ever do that again, and I hope they realize Sonic and open world just doesn't work. So don't do it, Sega. Give us more Shadow Generations. But yeah, that is my number 3.
And you know what? I don't have much to add on that game. I've been out of the Sonic loop for. I don't think I was ever in the Sonic loop, straight up. But I think to your point about Sonic kind of seeing like a little bit of a renaissance and kind of just making a little bit of a comeback, in recent years. I think that with the movies and with just some of the games being a little bit higher quality. I do kind of keep a pulse on how people feel about some of the games and just kind of looking into very briefly some of the reviews and kind of some of the sentiment around the games. It seems like Sonic is on the up and up, so that is good. Shout out, talking about cool characters. I think Shadow is a cool character. I don't know anything about him. I know that in the movie trailer it looks like he's a bad guy. Maybe he's a bad guy that becomes a good guy, but cool character. Sonic is already cool, and then a black Sonic that just looks like the ultimate cool. So, and his name's Shadow. Like he's got to be badass. So. Shout out to Shadow. I think that it's probably one of the cooler characters we've talked about today.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Actually, it's funny. I'm looking at my list and I'm kind of going from the bottom up, and I noticed that I put 6 games on this list. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to talk real briefly about a game that I would probably put in number 2, but I'm not going to just yet, just because I haven't played as much of it at all. Like I'm really in the very beginning phases. So this is not my number 2. I'll get into my number 2 in just a sec, but I just wanted to give, I guess, a special mention because I can see this game becoming number 2 once I finish it, because what I've played of it already is already incredible, and I'm already just so drawn in on, like, if I wasn't doing this podcast right now, I'd be playing that game. And that game is Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm probably only like 5-6 hours into that game, but that game has an incredible world. I love that it has kind of dark themes to it. It's made, it's an Atlas published game, which, if you've played Persona, which those games are phenomenal. I love those games. This is kind of set in, has a similar, not a super samey type template, but it has, elements of that game that you'll definitely recognize. There is a calendar system that marks the days, but the setting is totally different. It's a fantasy setting. You're dealing with politics. You're dealing with controversial subjects. Again, the character just at first glance looks really kind of goofy and kind of nerdy and dorky, and I kind of I wasn't drawn to him. He's not like a cool looking character, so I immediately kind of maybe I won't get this game day one, but you learn to like the character. The characters are all very well drawn out from what I've played so far. The game is voiced incredibly well, and there's still more to come. So big shout out to Metaphor ReFantazio. That game's probably going to be my number 2 once I finish it, but since it's not something that I've gotten too deep into, I'm just going to omit it off the list and kind of go with what, a game that I have played for a good amount of time. Actually, this is the game that I've played more than any other game ever. And I'm going to give number 2 slot to Destiny 2: The Final Shape. And that is particularly the final expansions. If there's anybody that's played Destiny, the game Destiny 1 came out back in 2014. It's been ongoing for the past 10 years. It's a game that me and my close circle of friends have really stuck with for the better part of a decade. I've made lifelong friendships with people within this game, and people that I would consider to be some of the closest friends that I have, just bonding over time, over the past 10 years of our lives kind of together. And we still talk to this day. And that's, part of the special element about Destiny 2, but specifically the Final Shape is kind of like the Avengers Endgame to the Destiny 2 franchise. It is the conclusion to the main saga, which is known as the Light and Dark Saga, for those of you guys who play Destiny. It is really like the climactic ending of how the story all really ties together, comes together. Very epic. It kind of brings the culmination of 10 years of building stories and constant stuff into this, this epic kind of final showdown between the Guardian that you play as and an enemy known as the Witness, which is, an absolutely epic and terrorizing freaking boss. And specifically the final raid, I think, was something super awesome with this game. The way that that Bungie does raids is really cool because they tie in the completion of that raid to the story. So just to give you a little bit of backstory. So with the final raid, when the raid comes out, it usually comes out on a Friday, and there's this race that takes place between all the people that play the game to get what's known as World's First, to see which fire team of 6 players can finish this raid. And the raid drops at the same time for everybody, so everybody jumps on, and nobody's seen any of the content, so it's all new stuff. You have people streaming this. There's millions of people probably watching as various people, the various streamers all, like the best players get together to try and conquer the puzzles that are within these particular encounters. And that very first day, it took the first fire team probably pretty close to, I want to say, I don't remember exactly, but it seemed like pretty close to 24 hours to finish it. Like, it was literally almost an entire day of them just straight playing. And you can see some of the people on the streams, just getting bloodshot red eyes and absolutely getting tired the freak out, just trying to, finish the final encounter. But what's really cool is after that first team completed the raid, what ended up happening was, okay, it triggers the next part of the story for everybody. So like everybody kind of in the Destiny universe kind of exists in this shared universe. It's kind of like part of the story. So immediately when that team beat it, everybody that loads up the game from that point forward would get a cutscene, and then the cutscene basically says like, oh, like one fire team was able to bring down the defenses by defeating the Witness and this enemy, but it's not really like they didn't really defeat it. So now there's this new mission that's unlocked where it basically allowed for a 12-person final showdown against like the boss. And this one wasn't in a raid setting, so this is kind of something that any team could do. And that mission was just so epic. And there's never been anything where you're able to have 12 players all on the same thing. And it's kind of like I said, like the Avengers Endgame, where everybody's like, all the main characters are coming onto the battlefield, and there's this just epic final showdown. And it really puts a nice capstone to the last 10 years. And that was just a really special moment in time, just particularly this expansion of Destiny 2. And it is an expansion, but Destiny 2, I think that the game as a whole has seen a lot of ups and downs. Unfortunately, it seems like the game's kind of fallen off since that raid was done, and since that conclusion of the Final Shape story really finished. I've since put the game down, but I think that there's just a lot of nostalgia and a lot of epic moments that, if you've played Destiny, you have tons of stories of that. And I just think that I have to put that onto the list because it's a game that's special to me, and I'm sure a lot of people is out there as well. So big shout out to Destiny 2: The Final Shape. That was an epic way to end that whole saga, and kind of just put that whole game to rest. Maybe I'll jump in here and there if my friends want to, get some games in, or if there's something new and epic that comes out. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for Destiny 2. It doesn't look too bright right now, but maybe they make that Sonic comeback, and we'll see what happens.
Is there any news like on a Destiny like 3? Or is that just kind of...
So there's. It seems like, I don't know. I feel like, if you search that online, you'll find answers that'll justify one way or the other. I feel like that would be a way to really revitalize the game, and get a lot of new people to jump in. So I think that's like a trump card that Bungie has in their back pocket if they really want to hit the reset button. I think right now Bungie's focus is on releasing a game that's going to be called Marathon that's coming out. I don't know when that's coming out. I haven't really kept tabs on that, but that's supposed to be a big play. So depending on how well that game does, we'll see. If that's like the next Destiny in terms of hype and in terms of player retention. But right now, I think Bungie's focus is on kind of putting together continual acts and episodes. Like right now, there's something they just released, like Act 3 of something. I wish I'd stayed more in tune with it, but they're continually releasing content, but it's nothing on the level of like a raid or these annual expansions. Like the annual expansions were the big deal. So I mean, these expansions go back 10 years. There's probably 10 expansions at this point, but we'll see. I think Destiny 3, that would be sick, because I think that that would definitely get my attention, and like, all right, we're jumping in again, boys. We're getting the band back together, and we'll hop in. But I think that's what it would take to get a lot of people to come back, because at this point, that's the part that Destiny 2 struggles with, is probably bringing in new players, just because it's such a... And they've made it really easy for new people to jump in, but that doesn't take away from the fact that people still feel like they're behind, and no one wants to jump into a game that's been out for 10 years and feel like they're jumping in for the first time, and they're playing with people that are leaps and bounds above them in terms of level and skill, and it's not the most inviting environment. But if someone wanted to give it a shot, I'm sure they can find something to have a good time about. So that's all I got.
Shout out to Destiny 2. Rest in peace, good friend.
As soon as Sony bought him up, it seemed like it fell apart. That was one of their not so good investments.
That's right. Sony bought Bungie, huh? Do you think Destiny 3
they
would be a
overpaid for them. I learned a lot.
A PlayStation exclusive?
No, it'll never be a PlayStation. So that's the thing too. I think just in terms of the general trend with gaming is, I think that Sony's realizing that the money is made with a lot of these games as a service type games, and everybody's looking for that gold mine, right? Everybody wants to...
Fortnite.
Everybody wants the Fortnite. Everybody wants the Apex Legends, and they're chasing that model. But by the time... It's so hard to do that. You see it with... what was that game that just came out and got canceled?
Concord.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's like a multi-$100 million flop where... they were developing that for 7+ years. I mean, if you think of what the gaming economy looked like 7+ years ago, Overwatch, stuff like that. That's when that was really popping off, and you're trying to mimic that, but the game landscape has changed so much. So by the time the game's ready and to be released, it's not something that really sticks. And that was kind of a crazy one. But yeah, not to get too far off topic there, but. Bungie is owned by Sony now. We'll see what they do with Marathon, and see if that sticks.
Speaking of Sony, my number 2 is Astrobot.
I knew it.
And you know what? I mean, this is kind of a backhand compliment to Astrobot. I honestly thought this was gonna be my number 1. I thought it was gonna overtake my number 1, but it didn't impress me in all fronts. 80% of the levels in this game I thought were amazing, but there's that 20% where I just felt like I was dragging myself through. I'm like, okay, let's gotta go. I am a big supporter of motion controls. When Nintendo did their motion control like Mario Galaxy, I never really hated anything when you swing a sword on Skyward Sword. Cool, whatever. There are motion controls in this game that just seem annoying, and some of them are cool, like when you're guiding a ship, cool. There's one you're a monkey and you basically have to do this to grab walls, And when I'm in bed, trying to collect all the trophies, like I have to sit up, like, all right, gotta do this. Like, don't want to do that. That being said, the 80% of the levels, it's one of the most beautiful. Actually, it probably is the most beautiful 3D platformer I've ever played. It controls so perfectly. It controls like Banjo and Mario Sunshine if they all had a baby. The game is clearly inspired by a lot of Nintendo levels. And I don't mean that as shade. I think it's really cool that they kind of took inspiration. And I've had conversation with my PlayStation only friends, and they get all offended when I say that. But Nintendo has been king of the 3D platformer for years now. So I'm really glad that someone came on the block and gave them competition, because I
That's
do
a huge
think,
compliment, I think. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I was trying to explain to them. Like when I'm saying like this plays like Mario Galaxy, like that is like one of the highest compliments I can give a game. Um, and I really do think it's gonna make 3D platformers, specifically Nintendo's, I think better in the long run. And then Astro Bot 2 is gonna come out, and it's basically Nintendo finally has a competitor, and I think that's gonna make the market a lot more healthier and more fun. Because I think right now the only good 3D platformer we get is a new Mario game every 7 years. So it's good to see someone finally attempt it. And the team at Astrobot just they know what they're doing down to the details in like little things. Astrobot and its prequels or little tech demos continue to impress me of like how they can use the PlayStation 5 controller. I love every little footstep you can feel on the PlayStation controller. I love when you're on a level that's raining, you can feel the individual water droplets on the different parts of the controller. It's one of those things that you talk about, but you're like you don't understand. You have to sit here and play with it. And everything you touch in this game, everything you hit, everything you walk by, the controller reacts to it. And there's so much detail, and it really makes you realize this controller does a lot of stuff that no one uses. There are levels where like you're pulling a chain and the triggers just fight back. I'm like, oh yeah, these triggers kind of like can adapt to certain situations. Oh yeah, this controller has a speaker. Oh yeah, this controller can do that. Like the game always does these little touches, and they're not annoying. Like and I was talking to my friend like, yeah, you feel every footstep. I'm like, wouldn't that feel annoying? I'm like, no, it immerses you. It's not to the point where like your controller is vibrating like when you die. Like it's very subtle taps, but you're looking at I don't know his name, Astrobot. Um, you're seeing him
Astro.
walk. Yeah, Astro. You're seeing him. I think it is Astro. You see him walking, and you're like, okay, it just kind of puts you in his shoes. Um, having it be like a PlayStation mosh pod of just characters throughout the years is awesome. I love that they got the inclusion of a lot of third party games like Metal Gear or like even Crash Bandicoot, which is crazy because they would have to talk to Xbox for that now, but they got the deal done.
Locked
Stuff
it
like
in
that.
early.
Yeah, probably. Stuff like that just makes it really enjoyable. The game's really fun. The game's collectibles are really fun. Um, I do wish the game was a little harder. There's a final level in the game, and unfortunately, I got sick, so a lot of my friends beat it, platinum it before me. So I'm like, okay, so how's the last level? Every 3D platformer has that like godly level, and they were hyping it up like this is the hardest level ever. This is gonna be crazy. Like I'm like, oh, I'm excited. Like I love me a good challenge. I beat it in 2 tries. Um, so
That's Randman Legends for you. He goes
yeah.
in there and crushes the hard levels
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, so I wish the levels were a little harder. I know the game's getting DLC down the line. I know there's those those time trials things. I already completed all those. Um, Platinum it, collected every bot, everything's completed. So I'm hoping the DLC levels lean a little bit more into the challenging aspect, especially because it feels like a lot of people this is their first 3D platformer, at least their first 3D platformer in years. So I'm hoping this kind of opened them up to a little bit more of a challenging level in the future. Um, but shout out to Astrobot. I really hope Sony sees that this could be. I mean, Sony I think might see this as their new mascot because people just the love for it, the reviews it got, the overwhelming praise, the like care and detail that went to this game. I think is not going unnoticed. I think people clearly see that this game is just pure love from a team that just knows what they're doing. Um, I think the team is Team Wasabi. I think that's the name of the developer. Um, they made three. This is their third Astrobot project, and it's just banger after banger. And I'm glad they got to just do a full project, the full game. One thing I want to shout out that in 3D Mario games specifically, I'm not really ever a fan of the boss fights. I really like the boss fights in Astrobot. They're not difficult, but they're fun, and I think that's more important in a 3D platformer with bosses because I get it. Bosses could be hit or miss when it's too hard. Sometimes it could be frustrating, but something about the Astrobot bosses, they're just really fun. The final boss was awesome. Gave me chills. I'm not gonna spoil it, but chills. It's just like the nostalgia it kind of runs through. And this is coming from someone who doesn't really have nostalgia for PlayStation in general. I was a Nintendo boy my entire life, so I don't have that nostalgia when I hear the PS1 or PS2 startup screen. Like I don't have that. But the way the game phrases it, the way the game, frames it, like it really like, oh, I don't even have to be a PlayStation fan. Like I can respect this. Like this is hype. Like shout out to the PS1 Pocket. Like I don't even know what that is, but the way the game uses it, like, oh yeah, PS1 Pocket is pretty epic. I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of is. So the game does a good job of teaching you PlayStation history. Last gripe, the music is good, but I know my music, and I know a lot of it's recycled from the PlayStation 4 game. I didn't think I would notice, but I noticed.
Slipped it in there, hoping that you wouldn't.
Like, yeah, so I loaded up my beach level. I'm like, ready for that banger beach theme. Like, I already heard this beach theme, so whatever. But yeah, shout out to Astrobot. Again, I hope PlayStation greenlights a new game. The game sold like 1.5 million copies already, but I can never tell if these developers are satisfied with that. Like 1.5 million should be celebrated, but I think people start looking at like Nintendo numbers, which they shouldn't. I think 1.5 million copies on a 3D platformer on a PlayStation console, I think is a good feat, and I think I hope they get time to make another game in the future.
No, I think the game definitely was seen as a victory from the Sony perspective. From some of the sentiment, I follow a couple podcasts, and they were talking specifically about the performance and the reception that Astrobot got, and it seemed like it was all positive. So I'm certain that they've probably been greenlit for another project in the future, and that they'll continue to churn this out. To your point earlier about kind of like the nostalgia with PlayStation, and kind of just even if you're not someone who's been a part of it or grew up with it, I think that as a fan of gaming and just kind of have an general interest and an investment in the PlayStation ecosystem, you probably have maybe like a secondhand nostalgia in a sense where you can appreciate the fact that there's some rich history here, and that some of these franchises and some of these games go back many generations at this point, and it's something to be looked at. Astrobot isn't a game that I've played myself. I definitely can respect it. I think that it's one of those games that I would love to play. I feel like I just default to the PC platform when it comes to gaming personally, and because it is a PlayStation exclusive, I'll either hopefully it's something that gets released down the line on PC. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't, but maybe it's something that stays locked up on the console just because it is brand specific in that regard. But we'll see. I think that it probably wouldn't be something impossible to port over, and if that does happen, then that's something I'll definitely be checking out. I don't know that I'll check it out anytime too soon, just because there's a lot of stuff that's in the pipeline, and sometimes if it just kind of passes you by, it's something that'll pass you by, and you'll hear about it, or maybe you'll get back to it another time. But yeah, shout out to Astrobot. Seems like it's a really fun game. Everything I've heard and seen about it seems overwhelmingly positive. I don't think that there's anything really any reason not to check it out. So yeah, I guess that transitions us to number one, and I think we have the same number one game, which is my pick here is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Absolute masterclass in gaming. Shout out to Square Enix. I should have loaded up the queue there. I could have played it. But no, the game is incredible from start to finish. I mean, if you've played Final Fantasy VII Remake, you can probably attest to that. But this game builds on that platform in every single way possible. Final Fantasy VII Remake is already, I've already considered one of the best games that I've played, and Rebirth just upgrades it in every single way. The combat gets a massive overhaul. You're able to, You got aerial combos up left and right. You got incredible ways to kind of transition moves and kind of tag in and out with your teammates a little bit more dynamically, and it's just a lot of fun. I think it'll probably appeal to players that want kind of more of that action style combat. I think that remake is maybe a little bit more deliberate and methodical with regard to how you plan your attacks. This one gives you a little bit more freedom and variety in how you're able to approach different enemy types. And it just felt so epic. I think finally, I think this is looking at my list of characters and main characters. Cloud Strife, cool ass character. Definitely an upgrade from some of the other characters I've talked about earlier today. But when you got a cool ass character, you're enjoying the game, or at least I'm enjoying the game a lot more. I think Cloud's awesome. Final Fantasy VII in general, the game is a very classic and highly regarded game. So obviously the nostalgia and seeing some of these, some of the locations and some of these in Final Fantasy VII brought to life in with modern tech and modern graphics is just so cool to see. The Golden Saucer is probably my favorite part of the whole game, where you're just spending time there. The music is incredible. This game has insane music. Even like the music where you're roaming around the different zones and different areas, just fighting enemies and grinding up your level a little bit. The music's so good. Randy and I actually attended the very first symphony that they put on. They put on a concert that opened here in LA, and that was absolutely awesome to see. We had a great time there. That was really cool, and brought back, because it had been some time since I had finished that game when I went to that concert, and that just, even hearing the music just brought me back to the time when I was playing it, and it just kind of reminded me of how special that game is. The game has an insane amount of content in it. Like I mentioned, the Golden Saucer just in and of itself has a zillion mini games and a zillion different challenges to reach in and of there. There's so many more areas to explore. The region, you're finally out of Midgar. You're out exploring the different areas, Cosmo Canyon. It's amazing. The different areas are beautiful, and they're so incredible to see brought on with modern graphics. And it's never a game that's boring. I think it's always fun. I literally went through the game. Every single enemy that I saw in my path, I didn't skip. Not a damn fight. I went in there. I'll fight these guys every single time just because I loved fighting. I love feeling good. I felt like I got good at the combat. I was good at dodging. I was good at combos. I was just kicking ass the whole way through. I mentioned mini games earlier. There's a card game that's completely new to Final Fantasy VII. Wasn't in the original game, but it's just an extra add-on. The card game Queen's Blood, which is an entire trading card game that's brought into the game. There's booster packs that you buy from area to area, and you collect cards that are of the characters and the different enemies, and the strategies can get absolutely insane. They have challenges in the different areas where you're able to play the cards, and you got to figure out the strategy to try and beat your opponent, and you can challenge some of the characters, and there's a whole quest line even tied to that, and it's ties into the story. It's really freaking cool. Like, that game is incredible in and of itself. You could probably make a Queen's Blood game just standalone, and I'd buy it.
And it would probably be people's game of the year.
Yeah, 100%. It's that good. It's such a good game, and the music that plays when you're playing is so epic too. It's just a banger soundtrack as you're looking through your cards and trying to figure out the best strategy, and it's just sick. Big shout out to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But I mean, just to kind of talk about the theme of the game, and the kind of a little bit about obviously Sephiroth, and you get to play a little bit of Zack, and kind of goes into that story a little bit more. You get some more context to Zack as a character, which is another cool character that I feel that people didn't get to see fully fleshed out in the original, or maybe there's definitely content in the original that talks about Zack, but I think it's just so much more. He's brought to life so much more in this game because there's flashbacks and kind of it ties into the main story, how what he does, and the game's just awesome. I mean, the final battle in the game is epic too. Music is on point the whole way through. This just kind of prompts the question of how do they even top this when they get into the third game? Because it's really like damn, if it's going to be a bigger game, which from some of the rumors out there it's supposed to be, and it's supposed to deliver, I can't wait. I hope this game comes out right fucking now because I can't wait. As soon as this game plays or it comes out, I'm picking it up. I'm gonna try to find an early copy from some bootlegger online and see if I can get this game, the weekend before it comes out somehow. And I'm gonna just dig deep and just dial in because I'm absolutely stoked and can't wait to play the conclusion and the trilogy for this epic, remaster of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, so my number one is also Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So it's such a special game to me. Every time I think about this game, I just get this stupid smile on my face. I'm like, damn, what a game. And similar to like what I was talking about Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII, the original, was like not something I was like very nostalgic about. I got a PS1, actually from Edwin's sister, years ago, and I saw Final Fantasy VII, like the game at like I think it was like a swap meet or something. And I only knew of Cloud, the character, because I seen him around. I was over at my friend's house, and he was in Kingdom Hearts at the time. And so I just knew of the character. I didn't know the game. So I bought the game, and at first I kind of dismissed it because it was a PS1 game, so it looked old. I'm like, ew, gross, no. Eventually I picked it back up, and it was really my first RPG, my first real RPG. I always call like Pokemon like baby's first RPG. I think that's still the case today. This was my first like fully developed, like you have like characters, you have a party system. Like it was just something that I was not used to. Again, being a Nintendo boy, I was like, oh, okay, very different. Eventually I slowly beat it. This is not a game I beat like in a week or two. This was over months. I beat this game finally, and I wrapped up, and it always held a special place in my heart. So when I heard they're remaking it, I was stoked. And then years ago, I think that this was during quarantine when I beat the first one. That open-endedness of like anything can happen really just kind of it struck a chord with me. Like this is best case scenario. I know a lot of people were mad that like, oh, we just want a 1-to-1 remake, and to that I understand. Remakes are fun, and there's plenty of remakes out there that I really do enjoy. But the promise of seeing these characters in different situations excited me so much. But I think what this game does so well, not only kind of keeping you on your toes, especially towards the end. Final Fantasy VII has always been this convoluted story of like, yes, the original game exists, but there's also a movie, and there's also a PS2 game, and there's also a prequel on PSP, and there's also these books, and there's also, there's so much. And I think this game does a really good job at trying to bring it all together, but not overwhelm you. The character Zack was in the original game, but he became a star in the PSP game Crisis Core, but not everyone played Crisis Core. So this game does a good job of like, well, here's some Crisis Core lore, here's some Crisis Core cutscenes remastered and HD and stuff, and I don't think anyone feels overwhelmed with the Zack character. Maybe a little confused on like his involvement, but I think that's the point. So I think it does a good job of trying to cover everything, and I think it's going to continue that into part 3, trying to cover maybe like movie stuff later on stuff. But like Edwin said, the gameplay is amazing. This game, I felt like I was progressively getting better, and the fights would get harder, so it kind of counterbalances like, okay, you're getting better, well, we're going to make the bosses turn up to 10. And I thought I mastered the game, and then I fought Vincent, and I'm like, I don't know anything.
That was where the game turned around for me too. When you fight the Galleon Beast, I was like, oh my god, that was the first time I died. Like I literally got to that point in the game, I was crushing everything. I thought, oh, I'm gonna smoke this game, and I felt like it was because I was that good. But it was really that's really the turning point where the game kind of like flips the script on you. It's like, all right, these battles can get a lot more in depth. And you got to really think about your approach because you're not going to be able to just use the same kind of strategy and smash through everything. But yeah, that fight in particular was awesome.
Yeah, and right there, I think after that, for me at least, I died a few more times after in battles, and that stupid dragging in the temple at the end with the lava floor. Oh my god, I don't think I've ever been frustrated with a game so much. I did everything I can in this game. I mastered every mini game. I collected all collectibles. I did every side quest. I'm missing 2 trophies in the game, which is beat the game on hard, and the last trophy was like do those hard challenges in the Chadley missions. One day I'll get to it. I think because I logged in like 120 hours in that game. I got kind of burnt out. I'm like, okay, I'll get to this when I get to this. I definitely want to platinum before part 3 comes out. Um, but yeah, this is a game I can just talk about so much theory wise. It's so fun to talk to people about. Um, and like Remake, I think this game did such a good job at like pleasing Final Fantasy VII fans, but also just so many of my friends who've never even touched Final Fantasy VII are just in it. That concert we went to, Edwin, like all those people I brought have never touched Final Fantasy VII. Like this
Same,
is
yeah.
a new franchise to them. So like being everybody like letting everybody get encapsulated like that, I think is super smart on Square Enix's part because you can definitely like since they're splitting it up in the part, it could be very easy like, oh well this is gonna happen. But now like us Final Fantasy VII nerds, like we actually kinda don't. The such a like the fun part about part 3 is like I kinda know where it's going, but I kinda don't. Like it could really go like in many different directions and you know. Final Fantasy VII was also one of the first games I got to record my reactions for. And I'm so glad I did because sometimes I'd look back on them like, you see the stupid smile on my face. That's, certain parts. I'm like, that's how you know I'm enjoying this game. And, shout out to the music, that first town of Calm, just right when you're just walking around, just talking to the people. Like, you already
Yes.
feel like it's a step up. And, like, this game is so big and so amazing that it kind of makes, like, it makes Remake look like a prototype. Like, it really just kind of, and that's not, no, like, that's not a diss to Remake. I love Remake. But the scope is just so, like, drastically different. You're just like, huh.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Like, I mean, that they really raised the bar, and I'm thinking, like, I mean, I mean, if you're able to even get a fraction of the leap from 1 to 2 with 2 to 3, it's like, my God, because I mean,
yeah.
I'd be satisfied if 3 was the same size as 2, but it sounds like it's going to be bigger, and there's still a lot of like story to cover too. So I mean, it's going to be interesting how they wrap all that up, and I think it's going to be an epic finale. So I can't wait.
Yeah, and again, another shout out to just the story, but also I think what this game does a lot better than the original is just showing that this is the cast of characters. This is probably one of the best cast of characters in gaming, in maybe media. I just love all these guys so much, and the little time we even get with like Vincent and
Oh, that's my boy right there,
Vincent and what's the pilot's name? It's the guy in
Sid.
every Sid. It's like, I'm like this guy in every
Yeah,
Final Fantasy. That's the little time we get with them. I'm like, it's just a special game. I just
yeah.
love it. Like Edwin said, the Golden Saucer was just like such a highlight. Like just seeing these worlds. I'm just excited. I
I
just love
just
this game.
left I left the
Yeah.
golden saucer like when I'd be doing stuff. I'd have it like I would just have the music playing in the background as I'm doing other things, just because I just love that soundtrack so much.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just amazing. The Genova themes in this song, in this game, all the remixes. Again, we can just go on and on with this. The combat, the graphics, just an amazing game. And I hope Final Fantasy. The thing is, they set the bar so high. I really do hope Part 3 can not only meet my expectations, but like meet the expectations of the developers, because I'm sure this project has been such probably a ambitious project for them, and I bow my head in respect to them because like I'm sure it's not easy trying to find this balance between like nostalgia and just keeping us on our toes. But I think thus far they've done such a great job. I know people I think people complained about that ending, and I'm not gonna get into it because of spoiler reasons. But like, I think, I think the developers want us to be confused, and I think that's a good thing, and I think it's a good thing for conversation. And I trust them. I trust they know what they're doing. I trust that they have an end game. They have an end plan.
Yeah,
They
they have a
have
vision for sure. I think
yeah.
that was that was made clear like in the remake when you kind of seen some of the things that happened in that game and some of the twists that occurred, and it's kind of like, what the heck, like, okay, this is a sharp deviation from any of the core content, but it's reimagining and remaking, giving a little bit of new plot to kind of look forward to as well. So big shout out to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I do have a couple more shout outs. I don't know if you have anything else to say about Rebirth, but I got some shout outs. Just some of the games that I've completed this year. Not all of them came out this year, but just one little tip of the hat for as a PC gamer. We got God of War Ragnarok this year on PC. I played God of War, the 2018 version. Was that 2018 when it came out?
Yeah, 2018 was the
Jesus, that's already so long ago. 6 years ago. It's crazy. I love that game. I thought it was fantastic, and then I just kind of delayed playing Ragnarok. I have a PS5, but I was like, I'll just wait for it to come out on PC, and hopefully it comes out soon. Because I played God of War 2018 probably a year and a half ago or a year ago. So it's still, the story was still semi fresh in my mind. I didn't forget the characters, or even really where the story left off. But Ragnarok, shout out. That game's dope. Awesome combat. Just the story is incredible. I really love the new spin that they put on Kratos, just kind of being that father figure, kind of that dark, that dark jaded man. And some of his commentary is just hilarious. Like, just some of the banter with the dwarves is top tier and just so subtle. I just love kind of like basically anytime Kratos opens his mouth, I think it's just there's like a dry humor to it sometimes, which I just crack up. Like, there's this one part where I forget what the context was. He's like frustrated with something, and then one of the dwarves, I think it was Sindri, he's like, "Hey, Kratos, you want a snack or something?" "I do not want a snack." And, it's just funny. I just love the characters in that game so much too. Like, all of them matter, and I think that's important.
That game is something else. Did you ever play the original God of Wars?
Yeah, I played all of them. I loved them.
Yeah. So I think this game does such a good job at, like, I love those games. Don't get me wrong, but this game does such a good job at, like, this is a game. Like, people. Yes. I think people gravitate towards these games more because the story is deeper and these characters don't feel like a man that's just angry about everything. Like, he has that softer side to him. And I remember back in 2018, people were like, "No, he's too soft now." I'm like, no. He's a broken man that's been through stuff. This is how a normal person would react. So, yeah, shout out to Ragnarok. Shout out to God of War 2018. Like, these games, amazing. Kind of similar to Final Fantasy. I don't know where they go from here. But I trust Santa Monica Studios that they have a vision.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to continue God of War. I wonder if they will, but I thought the director came out and said that was basically it. But I mean, there's questions that still need to be answered. I mean, that's another thing too. So I mean, it seems like they've left the door open. Should they decide to break the glass in case of emergency, they need to just crank out a banger. And you're like, all right, let's greenlight God of War 3, and we'll see where it takes us. But the other shout out is a game I finished. I don't know when this game originally came out. I feel like I bought this game 3 times. Finally beat it this year. Ghost of Tsushima, absolute banger. That game's incredible. Everything from the combat to the story to the graphics to the the characters are all so fleshed out, and the world is just it's just so beautiful, and you kind of, it's in a simpler time, it's in an earlier time, but it just kind of has that grassroots story of trying to overcome, and battling within the morals of yourself, and the virtues that you've been brought and raised to believe in, with the main character Jin Sakai, being a samurai, samurais being emblematic with and symbolic with honor and dignity, and he kind of has to, in order to save his people, assume this role of being like a backhanded assassin, which is kind of frowned upon by the samurai, and then it leads into this entire tale of conflict with how you navigate navigate through the game, and it's a fucking great game. I mean, that's a game that if you haven't finished it, Randy, I think you still need to finish that game. But that game is absolutely a 10 out of 10. They've announced the sequel, which is not really a direct sequel, but Ghost of Yote, which should be coming out at some point, and I can't wait to play that, just because the developers that put that game together are A1 in my opinion. So shout out Ghost of Tsushima. Got a couple more shout outs here, but I don't know if you have anything to say about Ghost before I move on.
Just the little I played of it. I mean, it's funny. I've actually started that game like 4 times. I don't know. I just other stuff comes out, but I will say it is a beautiful game, and that's the PS4 version I played years ago. So I'm assuming the PC and PS5 version are even more beautiful. It is a game I promise I will beat. Is definitely, I literally have a list somewhere on my desk where it's on my backlog. Yeah. It's on the list. It's gonna be beaten. Yeah, shout out to Sucker Punch.
So this next shout out, I got 2 more shout outs, but this is a little bit of a curveball. I don't know, this is not a game of the year by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a game that absolutely consumed me for probably 3 to 4 months. And And that game is Zenless Zone Zero, a mobile slash PC gacha game made by MiHoYo. So if you've heard of games like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail, a lot of these big AAA budget gacha games, it's really such a unique thing because there's not really many competitors in this space. Because if you're familiar with gacha games, it's all about how much revenue how much money you can make, and people spending on rolling for characters or getting just to build your account up. And I'll admit I spent some coin building up my account in this game. I've since put the game down just because it's one of those things where it's like I gotta just temper my my addiction to opening packs and rolling for characters. But that game is really good. Like in terms of the combat, it's so drawn out. It's like the first kind of game that I've played where it has fighting game elements within the style of combat, and the characters, the synergy between the characters. You do certain combos to do certain debuffs on enemies, and you can transfer in and out, and the blocking and the combos and the parrying is all part of the game. And it looks super flashy. It's set in this kind of I don't know. It's set in like this kind of 90s 2000s setting where the main character you're playing as is the owner of a video store where they rent videos, kind of like a Blockbuster Video. But then you're also basically this hacker that kind of hacks into what's called I forget what it's called. It's called like the ether. I forget, but it's you basically can hack into these networks and essentially you control a team of people who are in this kind of other dimension. And within those other dimensions there's enemies that you fight, and you're essentially there's a story that has political conflict, and it really kind of ties together pretty nicely. But essentially you have agents that you recruit through the gacha system, and if you want to get the best characters, they're constantly releasing characters, and it's pretty cool. All of them have really flashy cool moves. And again, just a shout out to that game. I thought that game was a lot of fun when I played it. The story is very solid. But again, the fact that the biggest drawback to this game is the fact that it is a gacha game, and if you want to kind of keep up with the meta and have the best stuff unlocked, it does require that you pay. So I wouldn't recommend it from that perspective. But from a raw game, like just as a game and from the gameplay is so fun. The gameplay feels so good to play, and that's kind of what kept me locked in for a little while. So shout out to Zenless Zone Zero. That game was dope for a quarter of a year or whatever, however long I played it. And then my final shout out, which I'm going to give this game a shout out every freaking year because I'm hoping that this game gets a boost if it hopefully ever releases on PlayStation. And that game is Halo Infinite. This game came out a while ago, but damn it if I don't play that game. Ever since I dropped off of Destiny, that's been my game. And there's not much to say other than that classic Halo formula. You're specifically the multiplayer and just getting them double kills, triple kills, snipers. They've had it so many game modes, and they've upgraded the game so much since launch. And I kind of had a little bit of a strugglish launch, which if it launched in the state that it's in currently, it would be an absolute juggernaut in the space. But I think that the fact that it kind of launched with not all the features and not all the playlists, I'm hoping Microsoft learned from that. And should they decide to give it a little bit of a resurgence with a PlayStation launch, I'm hoping it kind of gives it that second win and then gets everybody back in the mix. And that'll be a popping game to just jump back into with a whole new community. But those are all my shout outs for 2024. Feel free to jump in. I don't know if I got, I don't think you played Zenless, but that's all I got to say about that, brother.
Yeah, no, I got a few shout outs. I played a lot of games this year. I was just checking my list on my phone, and I started the year with 63 platinums, and I'm currently at 87. So just in the PlayStation side, I cleaned up on that. And,
Jesus, 24?
Yeah,
24 plats? You know how many platinums I have?
One.
What
game is it?
It's Infamous Second Son.
Oh my goodness!
PlayStation
I don't have that
4 launch title.
That's an easy platinum that I don't have. I
like that game's good. I love that game. Shout out to Infamous.
But yeah, one game I want to shout out because it's on my mind is Celeste. I literally beat it last night. This is a game I've 100% on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Switch, and now I'm 100%ing it on PC. And that game is just platforming bliss. There's an epilogue episode that I swear is not in the other version. I do not remember this level, but maybe I'm just misremembering. But it made some of it feel new last night. I'm like, what the heck? But that game, just I love that it feeds off your failure, and I know that sounds harsh, but that's the point of the game. This character is basically she keeps failing. Madeline, her name's Madeline. Madeline basically just is she just is very hard on herself, and eventually she has to fight herself because she keeps putting herself down. Just the messaging behind such a simplistic, pixelated game, I think, is really strong. But what really brings it all together is just the music. The music. I was on Discord with my friends and Edwin last night, and I had the lower done because the music was just on my mind. I wanted to listen to it. I'm like, I'm not letting people talk over this. Like, it was 100. Yeah, I love it so much. So yeah, shout out to Celeste. I don't even know who the person who made Celeste. I don't know what their next project is. Also, actually, on the subject of Celeste, shout out to Celeste 64, a tech demo that came out earlier this year that basically was a one level, but it was a 3D platformer in the Celeste gameplay. Really awesome. And if that was like a tease for like a Celeste 3D platforming game, sign me up. That was actually, I think, the first video I recorded for like my Brandman Legends thing as a reaction, just me playing that. That was awesome. So again, I don't know what that was because you had to download it on like the Celeste website. It wasn't like a Steam game. Very weird. Shout out to Celeste 64 as well. Another shout out I have listed here is Call of Duty. I know we talked about Call of Duty earlier. Shout out to Call of Duty. Again, I really think this game is the best Call of Duty in years. It kind of really brings back. I just love Black Ops, and the last Black Ops I played, I think, was Black Ops 2. So kind of being back in this Black Ops environment, I think, is really fun. Shout out to Bit Trip Runner. This game was actually my number 6 on the Game of the Year. It just missed the cut. Bit Trip Runner is an indie game that probably no one knows about, but
Nope.
Yeah, it's basically a rhythm 2D side scroller. One morning, I was eating cereal and I looked on Twitter and it said the new Bit Trip game is out right now, and I literally didn't even finish my cereal. I ran to my PlayStation, downloaded it, played it nonstop, platinum it. Great game. Great music, great controls, very simplistic, but just one of those games I just really love. So shout out to Bit Trip.
Just real quick, I don't think I've eaten cereal since I was like a kid, like straight up.
I have cereal every day and every night.
And just real quick, so I looked this up real quick. So the next game from the creators of Celeste is a game called Earthblade. So that was revealed at the Game Awards 2022. So it says it's not set to be released.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember
it looks cool.
Starts off with from the creator of Celeste.
Yes, it says that, and then so I mean it's a platformer. So I mean I'm sure, it'll have the same pedigree and probably even some improvement over the original formula. I'm not sure what Celeste even really looks like, but there looks like there's something else cooking over there at
Who develops that? Or is it a game that like one person makes?
So Celeste is developed by. Dun dun dun. Maddie Makes Games?
Yeah, it's one girl, right? Because I think she does the music too.
I don't know.
Because I don't know why I know this, but at the Game Awards 2018, they did a little medley. She was on stage and did the Celeste portion because Celeste got nominated for Game of the Year. So,
nice.
Yeah. Shout out to Celeste. I just love Celeste. I just love
Probably
Celeste.
coming out in 2025 because there's articles saying not coming out in 2024. But I mean, if people were maybe expecting it in 2024, I think 2025 might be in the cards. So it might be not so far away.
Perfect. 2025 Game of the Year locked in.
Lock it in. It's a pinnacle year. 2025 is a nice round quarter century year.
Nope. Something I also want to shout out is Pokemon TCG Pocket. This game basically did what Pokemon Go did, but for the Pokemon trading card game. Pokemon Go brought in this realm of people who never touched Pokemon in their lives. Now this card game on the phone basically brought Pokemon fans and non-Pokemon fans into this realm of just trading card games in general. It is a game that I knew I was going to love, and I kind of figured some friends would like, but the amount of friends and coworkers and the kids that I coach for, like everybody's playing this game and having a great time with it. I was worried that the game was gonna kind of die out because once you kind of open enough packs, but it seems like everybody's patiently waiting for the next packs to be released. And I think Pokemon Company is doing a great job at saying, like, hey, they were supposed to release them at the end of January. Now they're releasing them, like, mid-December, which I think is smart on their part. Kind of keep, not only that,
You got to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
You got to keep those fiends satisfied.
Exactly.
You got to give them more dopamine for their brain receptors.
Yep, me and my friends, we already have lined up. We're ready to spend money day one. We are ready.
Absolute fiends.
Yeah, and shout out to the 200,000 people who watched me open a pack on TikTok because that video blew up.
200,000? That's crazy.
200,000. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, I'll take it.
That's crazy.
And ever since then, my video's been doing really well on TikTok because I got a bunch of new followers. So, little soft special spot because of that too. But yeah, shout out to Pokemon TCG Pocket. Also, shout out to Pokemon Go. Nothing special happened in Pokemon Go this year, but I'm still playing. So shout out to Pokemon Go.
For those of you guys who don't know, Randy is like the leader of the Pokemon Go community around these parts. He's an absolute rock star in that game. So big shout out to that guy. I got banned back on year one when I was spoofing my location and trying to just catch Charizards in France and all this other stuff. So I kind of dropped off of the Pokemon Go, but I can still appreciate it for what it's worth. That's a really cool game.
Yeah, and shout out to, I don't know what happened. Like I said, nothing special happened in this game, but for some reason, the last month or two, a bunch of friends and family got back into it. I'm not complaining. I'm enjoying their presence back in the space. So I hope they stick with it. I know this game, like any game, especially a game like this, can have its boring moments. You stick it out, and then the game always gets hype again. Shout out to Banjo. Banjo Tooie came out on Switch this year. I haven't played it, but I just literally 2 weeks ago I did beat Banjo 1, not on Switch. Beat actually on my Steam Deck, but
you beat Banjo Tooie probably.
I beat Banjo Tooie. Yeah,
that's the best Banjo game.
Yeah, so shout out to Banjo. I think I beat Banjo 1 3 times this year, and I beat Banjo Tooie in January. So I definitely play Banjo 1 more because it's a quicker game. It's easier for me to digest. Banjo 2 is definitely the game, like, all right, this is the one I have to think about. And no matter how many times I play that game, like, some jiggies kind of get me stumped. Like, what do I do again? Like, that game is a lot more complex than I think people realize. And my last shout out to Uncharted. I platinum Uncharted 4 and its sequel, Lost Legacy, or I don't know what it is, side sequel, Lost Legacy. I played Lost Legacy years ago. I did not like it, so I never beat it. I gave it another chance this year, and I thought to myself, why did I not like this game? The game is great. The game looks great. The characters are great. I think I was mad because it didn't have Nathan Drake in it. And that really, upset me. I'm like, this isn't Uncharted. This is adventure game.
This is Charted.
No. Yeah, exactly. So playing that, really loved it, and it made me want to play Uncharted 4. So I played Uncharted 4, and those games, this put me in perspective, just to know a little about me. When I replay games, they're usually either quick platformers, like games I can just put headphones on and play, like Celeste or like Mario or something. Full-on story games, I do not like replaying. That is just something I don't like doing. It's a big time investment. I have to glue myself to the TV. I don't like putting headphones on. It's like Uncharted 4 is not a game you can just listen to a podcast and play to. It's a game you want to listen to every detail, every sound effect, every gunfight. It's just an immersive game, which is fine. I just don't like replaying those.
Let me ask you this: what is, if you didn't, for those smaller games that you prefer, kind of those bite-sized ones that you burn through, if they didn't have any trophies, would you still be playing them?
Yes, because I play Banjo and Mario and Pokemon.
Well, those are classics, though. But some of these little other games that you're looking at, I think you're looking at the platinum trophy. Like, I can just add that to the collection. I need a.
Wow. There are some games where I'm like, yeah,
it's a nice little hamburger treat.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I'm just a Nintendo kid. Mostly in that realm, it's Nintendo games that can find comfort and just pop in and hop on Discord and not worry about just play. And that is a factor with these bigger games where the trophy is definitely the carrot on the stick. But with Uncharted 4, I'll throw that all out the window. That is a game I constantly replay. I love that game so much. I beat it in July, and my sister's currently playing it. Every time she pops that in, I go to her room, or she plays in my room. Like, I'm watching you play because I just love this game so much. So Uncharted 4 is just one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm really happy I got they remastered it on PS5. So I played the remaster on PS5 this year, and then platinum that, wrapped that up, and then played the other game, and had a great time with it. Shout out to Uncharted.
Sony, we need to get Uncharted's 1 through 3 on the PC so that I can play them, because I'm just not gonna go play them on PlayStation. I just want to play them on my PC, have max graphics, max frames, just play with my controller. And
it's really weird that 1 and 3 aren't on 1, 2, 3 aren't on PC.
I would imagine they have to come at some point, because 4 is already on PC, which is like, all right.
Yeah, it's really weird, like because 4. I think I've talked to you about this before. Like 4 is such a. It references all 3 games. It really helms off the like, oh, you've played 1 through 3, because it basically like
it's all the context.
Yeah. So like, I can't imagine ever recommend. Max wanted to play Uncharted. Like, oh, I can play 4 right now on PC. Like, no. Like, but it's your favorite. It's one of your favorite games of all time. Like, yeah, but I don't think it's gonna hit the same, because you don't have the context of 1 through 3. You're not invested in Nathan Drake and his wife or his buddy. Like, these are just characters that are just new to you. But to me, I have 30 other hours of like story that I've experienced with them. So they're either not gonna do it, or they're gonna do the best the classic
rush.
PlayStation thing.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna remake them.
That'd be sick.
Yeah,
I've always thought it would be so sick too. Like, could you imagine if like games that have like a long, there's 4 entries or whatever. Like, if they just wanted to do, because I know that they get re-released and remastered at different times. But could you imagine if they just made one big game where it's just you just go from one, and it's just a long ass freaking game, but you can get it, and it's essentially all 4 games woven into like one timeline or just one experience, and kind of just that would be so sick. Like, no one's ever done that, I don't think, to my knowledge.
No. You can probably do that with Uncharted 1 through 3. Those games take place like months apart from each other. You can easily just do like the 2 months later or whatever.
Yeah.
And those aren't long games. I think I could be wrong on this, but the time it takes you to complete 1 through 3 is almost the same as 4. Like 4 is just a very long game. So I think they could get away with it, but I do think they're gonna remake it. They already remade Last of Us 1 and 2, so I just it makes sense. And people argue like, oh well, they already remastered Uncharted 1 through 3. I'm like, that doesn't stop Sony. They can remake games.
Oh, they've repackaged. Yeah, I bought The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Every time, every release.
Yeah. Yeah, they just remastered Horizon for like the 3rd time, or remake, or I don't even know what it was.
That's the game I still need to play. I think I have that on PC, and I just never played it.
Horizon, we can talk about this another time, but Horizon just got, for me, it came out the same week as the Switch and Breath of the Wild.
That's why I didn't play it.
And it's just, I played Breath of the Wild, I beat it, loved it, blah, 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 blah. And then I tried playing Horizon, and the minute I couldn't climb a mountain, I'm like, I'm out, So I heard they're great games. I heard that I just
not for me.
Yeah.
Or just not for me right now.
Yeah, but no. Shout out to this year in gaming. I just feel like it's a good year in gaming for new games and replaying old games. Like I said, I kind of been cleaning up on trophies, just cleaning up on games I haven't played. I've expanded my trophy horizon, so now I feel like I'm playing a lot more games without worrying about like a platinum, which has been really refreshing. So.
Maybe we end this podcast with some predictions. What do you think the game of the year for 2024 will be, from what you know and what you've played for the Game Awards? Yeah, so that's coming up probably in a couple weeks at this point. So I'll list the nominees here. So a lot of these were talked about. So the nominees for 2024's Game of the Year. We got Metaphor ReFantasia, which I touched on briefly. We have Astrobot, which was number 2 on Randy's Game of the Year. We have Black Myth Wukong, which was my number 4 game. We have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which was both of our number 1 picks. And we have Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, which is an expansion. Elden Ring, I'll just real quick, fucking fantastic games. One of the greatest games of all time. and then a game called Balatro, which ironically, just before we started filming this, I played it for maybe like 30 minutes. Actually, really sick, awesome, cool game. Very like unconventional pick for a game of the year, but it's pretty cool. But who do you think takes it this year, Randy? Like you gotta pick. Like if you had to throw $100 down and make a bet, who do you bet your money on?
I would probably guess, and this isn't a biased decision, I would guess Final Fantasy VII.
That's what I'm kind of hoping for. I mean, Final Fantasy
Yeah.
VII is up there. You know what? I have a feeling, and I wish I had more, uh, more gameplay hours with this game, but I'm thinking that Metaphor ReFantazio might take it. And the reason
That would
I'm
be
kind of just doing
that'd be
some
crazy.
deductive reasoning here, I'm thinking, okay, Rebirth. I feel like sequels. It's always a tough sell to get the sequels of anything to be the game of the year. I feel like that I don't know if that's happened, um, in like ever. Like, has there been a sequel? I don't know. Maybe there has been, but it's nothing's coming to mind. I remember when it was like The Witcher 3 versus I don't know if it was Bloodborne or I forget which I think it was Bloodborne versus Witcher 3, and I was like, damn, it has to be Witcher 3. And Bloodborne 1, I was like, damn it, Witcher 3 was so good. But anyway, um, Astrobot, like you mentioned, awesome game, super cool. Um, I just think that obviously the scope of that is a lot
Yeah.
smaller. I think I can see that winning like best platformer. It'll win something 100%.
Yeah.
Same thing with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I could see that probably taking best RPG or best action RPG, something like that. I think Elden Ring gets probably dismissed just for the fact that it is a DLC and it's not an actual full game, even though some people can consider it to be a full game because of the scope of that DLC. And if there's any developer that does DLC right, it is From Software. They do insane expansions that always feel like they're worth your money and it feels like a new and renewed experience. But I think that one gets knocked out. Balatro, that's an indie game, which a little, it's a sticky game, which I think people will be playing for probably many years, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a game you can kind of pick up and play just whenever if you're just chilling and just kind of want to kill some time. So then that kind of just leaves Black Myth Wukong and Metaphor. So Black Myth Wukong I think like made a lot of waves this year, and it was an awesome thing. It got a lot of press, and I think it's a fantastic game. But
How did I miss this
um,
game?
Black Myth.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen some of it. If you check it out, it has insane graphics. It looks incredible. It's probably some of the best graphics, like straight up, period.
Oh my goodness.
And then, dude, Metaphor is fucking so good. Like,
God,
and
this
I've
game
only
is
played a
just
little bit.
getting
I
hyped
feel like I'm
up and,
scratching the surface, but as soon as we stop filming, I'm probably gonna jump into that and just continue to chip away. I have, I'm off. Today's Thursday. I'm off till Monday. I'm gonna be making some progress in that game this weekend, 100%. But I don't know. I'm thinking it's already kind of set the stage for it to be like one of those games, and I feel like when you get into the Persona realm, you get into these kind of games that have the pedigree of the developers. They're kind of looked at a little bit differently. So I'm thinking maybe for that reason, Metaphor takes it. I would place my money on Metaphor, but I wouldn't be surprised if any of these games got it. But Black Myth Wukong, I can also see being. I wouldn't be surprised if that got it either because that is a new IP. It's something that I think was really really well received. But I don't know. I don't know if like the reviews for that game were all like fantastic. I think
Yeah.
that it was it's definitely some people had some gripes with it, but yeah, I mean I'm hoping it goes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just because that's my game. So you're preaching to the choir with that one. But yeah, that's just
Yeah.
my take. Metaphor, I think I wouldn't be mad if it took it. That would just kind of probably cement the fact that there's probably so much more to the game that I still have to experience that makes it awesome for it to receive such a prestigious award.
Watch the card game win.
That'd be hilarious. What won last year?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Baldur's Gate.
Oh yeah. Baldur's Gate. That was a.
Beat Zelda.
Well, there.
Hey,
I mean, that's a sequel, right?
Yeah, beat a sequel. Well,
Shit.
I mean, I don't think anyone ever talked about Baldur's Gate 2.
No,
don't know
I
what-
don't even know what that's on. Is that on PC
Yeah.
only?
Probably. Yeah, no, should have went to Zelda, but that's Slasher's topic.
That's true. That was an absolute robbery. Tears of the Kingdom is the game, brother.
I guess we'll see. It's gonna be interesting because there's a lot of awards. Like looking at those, like the nominees for a lot of the topics. I'm like,
Oh yeah, I
don't
haven't
know where
even
it
pulled
can
up
go
the other
to.
topics.
Yeah, no, they're pretty.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I see.
like,
Best
I think
narrative,
whatever.
best
Yeah,
game direction, best art directions. Let's
if
see.
Final Fantasy VII does not win Game of the Year, if it does not win Best Soundtrack of the Year, I'm turning off the Game Awards.
I could see Metaphor winning several categories. Like I think that they win the best art direction. That game stylistically looks so good. Like the world is incredible. So I mean, I think that that game wins that straight up. The menus in that game are fucking masterpieces. It's cool.
Yeah, I seen the menu pick. I mean, it's very Persona styled, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not a
it's
bad
very
thing.
stylized.
It's very, yeah. So, that's a game I'm gonna check out. I still have the prologue downloaded. I just been chipping away at all these other games, but the more and more I hear about it from this Edwin and just people on the internet and friends, I'm like, God, okay, this game it's gotten some of my friends who don't even like RPGs into like it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's doing something. So I will get to it. I promise. I loved Persona 5, so I'm assuming I'm just gonna love this one.
I think
Shout out Atlas.
they have best debut indie game. You have to imagine that Balatro wins that, right? I mean, the other ones aren't even
Yeah.
game of the year category. So I feel like there's some deductive reasoning. Oh, Balatro's on mobile, dude. Best mobile game, Balatro. Might have to
Yeah.
download it on the phone, dude. Zenless Zone
remember-
Zero's on there. Oh shit!
But remember,
Let's see.
vote for Pokemon Pocket TCG.
Yeah, look at all these games. They're all bangers. AFK Journey. That's fucking funny, dude. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up there. And I'll just share that it was a fun time. I think that we kind of found a little bit of a rhythm. Maybe I think this particular format we had a lot of like you speaking, me speaking, and not too much kind of like commentary going in between. But I mean, I think that that's a good thing because it kind of gives us a little bit of a format to kind of build on the prototype. So if you ever want to do it again, man, I'm here. Happy to
Yeah, for
do
sure.
and happy to shoot some more
That's fun.
podcasts.
My throat hurts, but that's okay. It was worth it.
Right
I'll just
on.
drink water. Alrighty. Well, thank you for listening. Bye bye.
See you, everybody.